Welcome back. In this video, we'll actually look at inking this fire hydrant together so that you can get some hands-on experience with how to ink. And you'll have this starter file available if you're in my digital drawing class. Make sure that you download this and open it up. You'll see that there is simply one layer that contains the penciled version of this fire hydrant. What we're going to do is we're going to first of all make sure that we have our inking brush installed. I've provided my digital drawing class an actual ink brush called KMS Square Brush, and you can see within Photoshop there are multitudes of other brushes that you can use for inking. Some of these are custom to my setup, but there are some general brushes that are available like hard round pressure size. Try the brushes that make sense for you. You don't have to use my brushes, but whatever the case may be, what you're looking for is a brush that gives you a very crisp and clear line that also responds to pressure sensitivity. In other words, as you press down, you should be getting a thicker mark. As you bear very lightly, you should get a much thinner line. And that's mimicking something that we would see if we were actually using an ink brush or a quill pen that also allows us to ink in the traditional way. So what I'll do is I'll just get rid of these marks right here. I'm going to go ahead and use my ink brush that is called KMS Square Brush. And we're going to start off by making a new layer right above our pencil layer. So we can do that by holding down the Shift, Option, Command, N key, or Shift, Alt, Control, N. And now what we're going to do is, given our pencils, let's go ahead and first drop the opacity of our pencil layer. Now your pencils might be darker than what I have here. If you're inking your own projects, I generally like to keep the lines as light as possible so it makes it easier for me to see what I'm actually inking over top of. So I'll drop the opacity here to about roughly 50%, give or take. And then I'll also make sure to lock this layer. I do this so I don't accidentally draw on top of my inks layer. Sometimes I forget, and sometimes it causes a lot of pain because I end up having to restart because my pencils and my inks aren't easily separated if they're all in the same layer. So we'll make this new layer, we'll call it Inks. We'll double click on the layer, we'll give it a name called Inks, and we'll make sure that we're using black here. And we're going to start off with basic inking, and then we're going to move into phases of indicating textures and lighting. So in this first video, we're just going to focus on line control, line weight, and making sure that we can work from our pencils. Now, depending upon the type of work that you're inking, some pencilers may have very detailed pencils. I personally pencil very loose. You can see my construction lines that I've used here to create this fire hydrant. It's comprised of 1, 2, 3 cylinders. It's got half of a sphere, and it's got like this donut shape, which is basically a cylinder that's wrapped around itself. And this is how I draw. I draw with volumetric shapes. And what I'm going to do now is on the inks layer, I'm going to select black, I'm going to use my ink brush, and I'm going to simply make some marks. And I'm not trying to trace this. The lines don't have to be perfect, but what you are looking for, and I'll zoom in so you can see this a little bit better, is this idea of thin to thick. So if I bear very lightly on my stylus, I get a thin line. If I bear down, I get a thick line. And typically speaking, the lines that are closer to the viewer will be thicker than the lines that are further away. And if that's not something that's easy to practice right away, just try to work on making sure that you can get variability in your lines. When you're pressing on your stylus, you should be able to see the line get thicker. So I've made this first cylinder here, and typically when I'm inking something that has a straight line, what I'll do is I'll make a new layer, Shift, Option, Command, N, and I'll just hold down the Shift key and draw a straight line. So that way it takes out all the wobble. And then what I can do next is I can go to my lasso tool and simply make a selection and hit Command X or Control X to cut it. This is one of the advantages that you have when you're digitally inking. You can cut out elements that you don't need. let me repeat that process on the opposite side. I'll use my brush tool, keyboard shortcut B, hold down the shift key, and draw a straight line down. So that takes out all the pressure of having to use a ruler. Some artists will use a plastic ruler on their drawing tablet, but many of these drawing tools will include some kind of a built-in ruler. Photoshop does not have a built-in ruler that you can use, and that's why I have a special set of tools that I'll talk about in a later video that are a third-party application that lets me draw straight lines, but we'll not talk about that right now. All right, let's continue on. So I'll just go ahead and draw the other cylinder. And for my curved lines, what I like to do is I like to rotate the canvas. You should always rotate the canvas to make the lines easier for you to draw. You want to always be comfortable. Keyboard shortcut R as in Robert, and if you just rotate like so, and if you hold the space bar down, you can move your canvas, right? So R rotates your canvas, pressing and holding down the space bar gives you the little hamburger helper, the little oven mitt, right? And I'm rotating this because it will be easier for me to draw this line coming down. And Command Z is undo. Sometimes you might have to do that a couple of times. It's totally normal, by the way. Let's now draw the end cap. And don't worry, if yours isn't coming out perfect, like maybe the lines won't exactly hit, you can always erase them. I prefer using the lasso tool because it preserves the crispness of my inks. Depending upon the eraser that you use, it might end up giving you kind of a fuzzy type of look, and I'm not really a fan of that. So I've rotated this. Let's go ahead and add the other cap. And it's always easier to pull lines down towards you, which is why I'm rotating the canvas. You want to make it comfortable. See, I'm rotating it again. I'm always pulling those lines towards myself. And once I'm finished with my rotations, I can just hit Escape, and that returns me back to the original view. So you'll see that I've got the fire hydrant in two separate layers. I can merge those layers. I can hold down the Shift key, select the second layer, and hit Command E to merge. This is how we work digitally. We can work with multiple layers, and if you're working on a secondary layer and you want to experiment, you don't have to worry about affecting the actual drawing itself. So I do this all the time. I'll make new layers, and then when I'm satisfied with what I'm creating, I'll combine it. So let's now create these lines here. And I'm not going to just draw them as lines. What I'll do is I'll just draw a little curved U and pull down from one end, and then go up to the second top here, and then hold down my Shift key, draw another thing. So it has this kind of recessed feel to it. And what I can do now, because I'm feeling lazy, is I can hold down the L key or press the L key for my lasso tool. You want to make sure that the regular lasso tool is active. And I'm just going to highlight what I have here. And I'll hit Command C, Command V to copy and paste. And I can also, another nice way of quickly copying and pasting without having to do Command C, Command V, is if you hold the Option or the Alt key down, you can make a duplicate. And this works in most of our Adobe programs. And I'll just move this one just out a little bit, like so. And I can always adjust this. I don't have to necessarily, make an exact identical copy. I can adjust things as I see fit. So now what I can do is on this last copy right here, you can see that it overlaps the horizontal cylinder. Again, with my lasso tool, keyboard shortcut L, I can just simply make a selection, and I can hit Command X to cut. And now we have the basic inks for this fire hydrant. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll establish a light source, and we'll start to add some shading on to this fire hydrant, and even texturing too. So stick around, got more to do. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.